Tech companies are gaining attention for their possible involvement in the immigration crisis at the border. Employees at Amazon, Microsoft, and Google have expressed concern over their company's relationship with immigration and customs enforcement.
Letters written to the CEO of Amazon and Microsoft call for any work to stop that violates human rights or is involved with separating children from their families. Here to break it all down for us is senior reporter for TechRepublic, Dan Patterson. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So what relationship do technology companies, what relationship do Silicon Valley organizations, companies have with ICE?
Well, this is yet another example of technology advancing at an exponential rate where our policies kind of advance at an incremental rate. We are looking specifically at artificial intelligence facial recognition technology. Amazon, in fact, through their AWS, their Amazon Web Services Cloud Suite, has a program called Recognition, and they've been working with the federal government, many components of law enforcement, to sell this facial recognition technology, which will identify your biometrics, what you look like, your body movements, and other types of data to process and presumably find those who have broken the law. Of course, right now, when we look at migrants, it's ambiguous as to whether migrants have broken the law, especially if they are fleeing violence or they're fleeing other types of horrendous lives. Their legal status is generally protected by the United Nations and by our allies. So to criminalize these people and to treat them as though they are criminals poses a number of challenging ethical risks for big tech firms like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. All of these companies have come out and their chief executives have said this is heartbreaking. Their employees have said this is heartbreaking. And in fact, a good example of social media is that Facebook has been used to raise millions of dollars. At the same time, there are some big challenges when we look at, say, genetic testing or ankle bracelets on migrants. There are issues with consent, whether minors can consent to having their DNA taken. And once all of this information is stored on servers in the United States, and if these people are criminalized, these migrants who generally, historically have been protected, are criminalized, their data stored on servers in the United States is subject to subpoena and further actions by the administration. So although tech has been trying to help, there is no magic bullet and there is no magic technology one, as much as big tech firms might like us to believe that. And there are ambiguous issues with the ethics of how artificial intelligence treats human beings.
Yeah, really. So what has been the reaction from the employees of these companies?
Well, the reaction of employees has been very strong and very human, and they have kind of reined in some of this behavior. Again, Satya Nadella, the chief executive at Microsoft, has said this is heartbreaking, and Microsoft and Apple have been trying to position themselves as the moral backbone of big tech firms. Their employees have signed letters of petition saying, not only is this heartbreaking, our technology, in fact, Microsoft had a $19.5 million contract with the United States law enforcement agencies. They said, look, we are profiting off of the potential exploitation of migrants. We're not talking about criminals. We're not talking about gang members here. We're talking about human beings who had the only option was to do a long, dangerous trek across the desert, and their legal status suddenly shifted through a political crisis that seems to have been manufactured. And so the employees at technology firms have said, look, our tech is capable of many things, but if we don't rein it in now and apply values, then it could run away from us and be used for some potentially horrible things.
I wonder, even with regards to the ethical issues, if there will be legal challenges at some point. We saw just last week the Supreme Court ruling that tower information used to track somebody who had committed a series of robberies was unconstitutional, and it was very narrow in their decision. Yeah. But clearly, there's Supreme lawyers, judges are looking at this advancement in technology and how it's being used when people are committing crimes, even crimes that are related to immigration.
Yeah, that Supreme Court ruling last week was fascinating, and it was fascinating by how narrow it was, right, although it is an example of the courts saying, look, we do need to step in here, and we need to apply some sort of precedent that can be used as technology advances so quickly, so fast. You know, you think 5 years ago, we had the iPhone, what, 5? Think about how much more sophisticated just our personal gadgets are now. And if we think about the advancement of artificial intelligence, if we don't set precedent now that takes into account privacy and some of the fundamental tenets of not just the United States, but all of our allies, our way of life, privacy is something that we take very seriously, or at least historically have taken very seriously.
Yeah, good points.
Very interesting points. Dan Patterson, always good to have you, my friend. Thank you.